Oh man, we're live.
We're live. We're live on both platforms yet again. Look at that symmetry.
I was wondering because you never got back with me on this.
hmm.
Should we make this the main form of communication with podcast listeners here?
I'm not opposed to that, but I'm also on the fence of that. Because we'd be setting apart our OG fans.
Yeah, yeah, that's
We'd be
true.
saying, I don't care if you don't have uh, Facebook or YouTube's. I don't care if you don't access that. You gotta do it now, unless you wanna, if you wanna keep up with us. Otherwise, sucks to suck.
SOL, dude. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Stay out of luck. Um, yeah, I don't know, man. I just look at these. We peaked in August 2020, dude. on the audio side of things. We're still growing on the. This is all tongue in cheek because you guys on the live streams help us continue to grow. Every week we get a little more listeners, a little bigger audience. It's amazing.
hmm
And so I think we hypothesize that over time, our listenership has dropped. Oh, I need to share this, dude. I didn't even share this on my own page yet.
Migrate.
Yeah. But yeah, migrated from the audio to the live stream. And so that's why our live
hmm
stream or our audio numbers have gone down, our live stream numbers have gone up. And so we were just trying to decide if we want to make this a full-time vodcast, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know. It's a hard thing to think about. I mean, there's a lot of. I think there is a lot that can be said to be moving over towards that because I know there is a lot of different, mediums, podcast mediums, that have really popped up since the pandemic. And
Yeah.
vodcast has become like one of the newer things that I've noticed. I see them pop up on YouTube a bunch and stuff like that. Um, but I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know. Something we'll consider moving
hmm
forward. But this week, you know what? Let me just go ahead and hit that record button, for our audio listeners.
You might as well, man. You might as well for those
Yeah.
audios.
For those audios. Here we go. So this week we are doing a follow-up to a discussion that Dennison and I had a few weeks back, and namely when we had our last in-person catch-up. And that is what it's like living with an EV, which means an electric vehicle. Many people don't know this, and I think a lot of people still wonder. I would actually say probably a lot more people have had the chance to drive one by now, rent
hmm
one, whatever. But actually living with one, what's it like? What are the challenges? What are the things you have to accommodate for? And what are the pros too? What are things that you don't get with you know a gas powered vehial. And
hmm
actually, I've thought about one thing a lot, probably a lot more than I would expect, and that is the
Mm.
dog mode of the Tesla.
The dog mode.
Dog
Interesting.
mode.
Not
Yeah,
usually what most people think of, but sure. Yeah.
no, I thought about the dog mode a lot because I was like, man, like if I stop somewhere to run in,
hmm
you don't want to leave your guitars out in the heat or anything
so
like
so your guitars are your dog.
yeah. So I'm gonna leave it on dog mode
hmm
and just let my guitar stay cool the whole time I'm grabbing something on the inside. You know what I mean?
That's true. That's true. You'll
Yeah.
be good to go. No need to keep your engine on, right? Because it's an
Right.
electric vehicle, so you're good. You're just
You
cooling the whole thing.
right. You can do this with a gas powered vehicle, just to be very
You
clear,
can.
but
You can.
it's a lot
Emission.
more noticeable that your vehicle's running. You're burning gas, whereas this goes into lower electricity output, and it kind of invites people to break into it more.
Yeah.
So yeah, Anyway, there are some hidden pros like that I think the average consumer wouldn't be aware of. But also
Hmm.
just what it's like living with this long term, right?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Do you have any regrets, man? Any regrets?
Regrets.
Yeah.
um, you know, not really, not really. I think the only regret, sort of, because it's a weird caveat that I jump between every day pretty much, is the noise, right?
Yeah.
You lose the magnificent, wonderful sound of a motor, right? Of whether it's a four cylinder, a V8, V6, any of that. Sounds great. Um, but for me, at least, my thought process is electric vehicles are perfect for daily driving stuff. And then if you have the means, right, you can always get a gas powered vehicle as your weekend car or your project car or something similar to that, right? Um,
Or if you buy a Dodge, you can.
oh, you can get simulated sounds,
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
For
Yeah.
those who don't know, I'd be interested to hear the thoughts of those on the live stream with us. Dodge is going all electric. In
Hmm.
fact, all of yeah, all of Dodges. Um, but even in the Chargers and the Challengers, which great built-in name to go electric, I have to say.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
No, it is perfect.
yeah, but if you're driving a Challenger or a Charger, I mean, and you miss that thing got hit me, right? Yeah, just turn
Hmm.
Hemi mode. It'll start pumping it through your speakers and make you feel like you have one again.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. But no Hemi will be able to pull like that electric motor can, man. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah. So I don't know. The Hellcat's gonna feel a little less intimidating, I think.
Oh,
Um,
that's
yeah.
true.
Yeah. No, I understand that. That's definitely something we've touched on before, but I know we got a whole lot more we can talk about. So let's go ahead and get into it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Dude, I just heard a car noise. Did you hear that?
No, I didn't.
That's weird. It's like, screw you, electric vehicles. All right, here we go. Three, two, one. What's going on, everybody? I'm John,
And I'm Dennison.
and this is the catch up. Mm, 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 mm,
Mm,
mm,
mm, mm,
mm,
mm,
mm,
mm,
mm,
mm,
mm,
mm, mm.
yeah. See, we would have to get an actual audio board. I don't think we could do every podcast
That's
with
true.
just
It'd
us
be,
singing. It's
yeah,
just us singing.
it'd be a little bit of a little painful. Yeah,
Yeah.
an audio board would make it a lot easier. That is for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah. And then that time I spent editing and putting it on the audio, I would spend it just making little reels, dude. Little Facebook and Instagram reels. You know what I'm saying?
You're right. You're right. You're right. I mean, hey,
I'm not wrong.
it's a great deal, but I feel
Hmm.
like there's still that logistics that still needs to be sorted
Yeah,
out.
we can talk about it. If you're on the live stream right now and you think that we should go full time live stream or continue to do an audio podcast as well, let us know in the comments. What do you think?
Mhm.
Tell us right now. You might be a little biased because you're on the live stream right now. All
But I
right.
mean, hey, our audio listeners, because we still haven't, banished the audio. Um,
Right.
please tell us. You can always check us out at the. Well, John's about to tell you exactly where you can communicate with us, but you can always send us a message, an email, and let us know. Let us know.
It
It helps
is.
us out.
Yeah. Each week I talk about the three best ways to get in touch with
Hmm.
us. And that is the bonus fourth best way to get in touch with us. Send us an email at the
Hmm.
ketchupcast@gmail.com. That's the ketchupcast@gmail.com. Yeah. Yep. I should let you slide in on that one. Um, But the three best ways to stay in touch with us or to connect with us in some form or fashion. Number one is to jump on the live stream with us. The best part about it is we are recording these episodes live, and you get to jump in the comments and have this discussion with us in real time. Let us know your thoughts each and every week. The number two best way, rating and a review. Let us know what you think of each episode. It'll help us continue to learn, grow, perfect our craft, and it will tell the algorithm that people are reacting to this show, which is huge for us. And number three, go to our website, which is a website, a holding website right now is our Etsy page, where you can find our merch and apparel all in one place and support us financially. We do have to pay for the distribution of those clothes, um, but we keep the profit. So that will be a huge benefit to us to continue to grow as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah. Oh man, speaking of clothes, I have to mention this real quick. I kind of like I don't buy clothes very often, but then I'll go on a buying spree. So I got
Mm-hmm.
like two new pairs of shoes and a couple of shirts, and I'm really proud of these shirts I got. One of them was a Captain America shirt, but
Ooh.
it was
Okay.
just his logo in like end game, so it had like the star and
Mm-hmm.
then the wings come out from it, right? Which was cool.
Mm-hmm.
I got what else did I get? I got it looked like how would I describe this? Kind of like a summer camp shirt almost. I don't
Mm-hmm.
really um but it looked like a I'm gonna see if I can pull it up. But it was a Camp Lehigh shirt, which is
Oh.
where they turned Captain America into a super soldier,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was really proud of that one too. This is on T Public. Yeah, here we go. I'm gonna show you guys real fast. Um, there it is. Strategic Scientific Reserve. Let's see here. Yep. And boom, boom. Yep. It has to give me all these warnings. Okay, there's that.
Boom. There it is.
There it
That looks
is.
neat. That
It's
looks
pretty
pretty
cool,
neat.
right?
Yeah.
Yep. And then I got I got this.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
The
Little TVA
TVA
person.
TVA t-shirt, man.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
I
I'm
like
gonna
that.
wear
That's
that.
clean.
Yeah, it's clean, right? It's super clean. I'm gonna wear that all the gigs, dude. I
Mm-hmm.
had to be clean, dude, but I also had to be a nerd at the same time. So,
Yeah.
um, anyway, if you're not buying our merch, which is probably where you should start, I would recommend after that going to T Public because they have independent designers that have made some sort of shirt for literally anything you could imagine. It is awesome. I've gotten so many things on there. I got a like a shirt that was as if it's almost like a race car driver fan shirt, but it's for
Mm.
Tom Cruise's fictional character from Days of Thunder,
Oh, that's
right?
cool.
Yeah, and then I have one a Binford Tools tank top from yeah from Home Improvement. Um, and man, I got something else on there too. I can't remember what it was now. Anyway, I've gotten a lot on there. It's pretty awesome. Um, but yeah, so anyway, let's get into this topic. Why don't you start off, man? However
Yeah.
you want to, obviously, but I guess really what I want to know is let's do it this way. What are the three biggest pros and then the three biggest cons that you have after living with an electric vehicle long term? Which, how long has it been by this point?
Uh, 3 months so
Okay,
far.
cool.
In three
Yeah.
months.
So after 3 months, what are three pros and three cons?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. I would say probably the first pro, and I guess kind of the best pro, is that every single day I leave the house, for the most part, um, I have a full tank of gas equivalent, right? I'm at a full charge, so
Right.
I can. I'm always essentially able to go where I need to go. Now, I guess the one caveat with that is right. For most EVs, you don't charge them up to 100%. Um, just because I mean, it's like your phone, right? Technically, you're not supposed to charge your phone's battery up to 100%, because it can degrade the life of the battery over time.
Sure.
Um, but for me, I charge it up to about 80%. And every morning I wake up and I need to go somewhere, I always have 80%. Don't have to worry about, oh, did I stop by the gas station? Or, oh, do I need to stop by the gas station? Um, and that amount of range that I get is a ton. It's enough to get, like, of course I'm doing my daily runs of whatever, but then if I have other stuff that I need to do, I can go do that. Um, and essentially drive around town, really drive around the metroplex, and still come back home, and I still have plenty of charge left over or whatever like that.
Sure.
So I don't really get range anxiety as much. Not really. It's the only time I've ever seen that is when I'm doing long distance drives. But I can talk about that in my con. Um,
Sure.
so, I would probably say that's probably one of the best pros for me, is that I literally always have a full tank of gas. Um,
Sure, which I'll save my question about that for the con too, because
okay.
I have thought on that. But yeah, so no,
Um,
that's a good one because really, like you said, well, you know what, I'll throw it in here. That's kind of what electric vehicles, in a large part, are meant for right now, is being able to drive around urban city, uh, metropolitan areas, you
mhm.
know, and not have to worry about gas or anything like that.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, exactly. And I'll say some of that is due to infrastructure things, right? As more chargers and stuff like that change, or get deployed out throughout the country, I think a lot of that'll change. But yes, one of the biggest benefits for electric vehicles is because of their high efficiency in very urban areas. Uh, just because of stop and go, stop and go traffic, you barely deplete your battery because you're not even using electricity, essentially, because you're not turning the motors or anything like that. So you're barely using any electricity. So
Got it.
um, and with regenerative braking, right, a lot of stop and go traffic, you're actually gaining back a lot more. So sometimes you can be in stop and go traffic and never, for miles or whatever like that, and never actually lower your charge because you're just constantly kind of charging back the battery. Um, so
Yeah, well, explain to people how that works too. I know we've talked about it before, but
Yeah, no, I can. So regenerative braking is essentially using, in some ways, if you've ever had an opportunity to, at high speeds, right, with your gas powered vehicle, where you are you're able to go to a much lower gear, um, and you do it really quickly, and your RPMs go up really high or whatever like that. But you also get this big lurch of, like, essentially slowing your vehicle down really quickly, right? Well,
Mhm.
so think of doing that, but with electric motors, right? So you're doing that, and the process of doing that, um, is the electricity, or the kinetic energy, I guess, technically, that's generated from that goes straight into the battery.
Mm.
And so it makes it so that you are extending your range by having it on, right? By having it on, by utilizing it, you're extending your range even farther than um, what most people would get, I guess, in some ways. So it's just a really, really efficient way to do things, so that way you are able to go farther and longer and stuff like that. So that's,
Sure.
again, another reason why I say that electric vehicles tend to do really, really well in, like, stop and go traffic, or even urban areas, because of course you're not using any emissions or whatever like that, but you're regaining a lot of energy in those environments because of regenerative braking. So you're using less, so you're able to go farther and all that other good stuff.
Sure.
Um, so yeah, it that's kind of how the whole process works.
Yeah, definitely. It's very simple, but yeah, using that energy, using the heat, and basically molecules that we can't perceive, right? Like Denson was basically saying, um, are getting supercharged and creating so much energy that can be turned into electrodes and charge the battery, which is
Mm-hmm.
crazy.
Exactly.
Um, but yeah, anyway, so go ahead, man.
Let's see. So yeah, my probably my next pro um would be the opportunity to um sorry. My next pro is probably just the acceleration. It's probably one of my
Oh,
favorites.
all right.
Um the acceleration, even on my model, which isn't a super duper fast one, it's not the performance one, which it's funny once you get used to the acceleration. And don't get me wrong, you don't get used to the acceleration super duper quickly or anything like that. But once you do get to a state where you're kind of used to it, um, you kind of want more. um, but it's
Yeah.
it's the fact that on electric vehicles, there's no ramp up, right? Like for in gas power cars, there is a ramp up. So
Hmm.
it's, you're going through multiple gears to make sure that you're at an optimal point in the engine as bandwidth, essentially,
Yeah.
for it to give you the optimal amount of power. It has to build itself up to get to that point, right? Because
Sure.
it's still moving. It's a bunch of moving parts getting to a point to where they are at their highest efficient or highest power limit. Um,
Yeah.
with electric motors, there is no ramp up. It's just on off. It's like turning on lights, right? Um, and
Also,
so,
like kind of the way that Dennison's describing it, like maybe say you're lifting weights, right? And say you're like bench pressing, right? And you're like flat on your chest. You don't have a lot of power coming flat off your chest, but then when you get about 45 degrees out, your arms are bent 45 degrees, boom, watch it the rest of the way. That's what a
hmm
torque band looks like on a lot of engines, right? So
hmm
it's not going to have a whole lot starting off because you have to rev up the RPMs, which create all of this torque and horsepower. Um, Meanwhile, a battery is a battery. And so when it's on, it's on. When it's not on, it's not on. And you could almost look at the gas pedal or the just, I guess in this case, the pedal um, on the electric vehicle as more like a dimmer switch, you know?
yep, that's a good analogy.
Yeah. So anyway, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, no, no worries. That was great insight. Yeah, no. So it's like I said, it's on and off. So it makes it to where, like, if you need to pass people, right, you just put your foot down or even just a little bit, and the vehicle just moves so quickly. um like there's many times where, I've chirped the tires because I'm just moving so fast and stuff like that. And like
Sure.
I said, mine isn't even the fastest, but it feels so sudden. It's so cool, and it really pushes you back. And it's
Hmm.
probably one of the coolest party tricks that I think any EV owner would loves to show people. Right?
Yeah.
Is because it's just that instant torque. So that's probably one of my favorite ones.
It's awesome. Sure.
Let's see, and then my last one is um, it's hard to say. I It's like a pro and a con, right? I actually kind of like regenerative braking, which is weird. It's a weird feeling to get used to, but once you're there, it's kind of cool. It's just a cool ability. And I guess this kind of and the overarching portion of this really is more of maintenance, right?
Yeah.
Um, Now, of course, I don't know too much because I've only been in this for 3 months, but
Sure.
going off of regenerative braking, right? That isn't even using your brake pads. So, in some cases, right, your brake pads take a huge amount of time for you to actually be able to um, a lot longer amount of time for you to actually wear them down because you're not using those brakes. You're actually using regenerative braking
Right.
for that. So that's a really big or a really good big pro on that. Now, of course, there's cons to it, and we'll get to that in just a second. But
Sure.
and then there's also fewer moving parts. There's fewer liquids to worry about. Like you'll never change your coolant that's in the an electric vehicle because it's the coolant that is used for the batteries is all self-contained and essentially never gets tainted by anything. So it's all
Yeah.
its own liquid cooling system. The fluids that you would change is your washer fluid, right?
Yeah.
Um, you may do some blake, brake fluid because that is something that's still used, but there's just a lot of a lot of things that are just not as prevalent as you have with a gas powered vehicle.
Mm.
So I think that's probably one of the bigger ones too for me.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, those are good. Let's I agree with all of them. Let's jump over to the cons real fast.
Yeah, yeah, of course. So let's see. Going on the same fact of, so I'm not even going to put it in a specific order, but going on with going back to maintenance, right? Maintenance, although maintenance costs are lower, since it is technically it's a new vehicle, right? A newish type of vehicle that's jam packed with a whole bunch of technology. Um, the maintenance cost of each of those specific actual uh, equipment, right? The
Mhm.
specific equipment that's in it is a little bit
Sure.
more expensive. So
Okay.
that means your maintenance costs for those items are going to be more expensive than your gas powered equivalent. And then in particular for like Tesla, right? There's not as many third party places that you can go like there is for gas powered vehicles for you
Mm.
to get a cheaper version of whatever you want, right? Essentially,
Yeah.
from what I've learned, if you wanted to get a cheap version of whatever is wrong with whatever, you essentially have to go into eBay and find a wrecked whatever it is, right? Model
Wow.
3, Model Y, because they're so strict on like part distribution and stuff, uh, to be able to take that, essentially take it off of that, and then be able to do it that way. And
Yeah.
sometimes those parts aren't even cheaper. Now, going on to that, some Tesla does their warranty is pretty long, and then at the same time, um, some of the service center stuff is a lot cheaper if you're getting it directly from them. It just depends on big uh, things. But yeah, maintenance costs can be a little bit more expensive on individual parts, but over the lifetime of the vehicle, it is still cheaper to operate than a gas powered vehicle. But I think a lot of people get so think thoughts of like you never have to change anything, and that's just not true.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. And the upfront cost is greater. Like we've talked about, the upfront cost is greater. Maintenance costs are less. And obviously there's no comparison for the gas. So you have to own it for about, I think, what was it, 5 years is what we looked at for it to
Somewhere
even
around
out.
there for it, yeah, for it to even out exactly.
Yeah. So you got to invest in it in the long term. But yeah, it's still worthwhile
Yeah,
investment. So anyway,
exactly.
go ahead, man.
Let's see. This kind of still kind of goes into maintenance costs, but the next one is probably going to be more along the lines of tires. You go through tires a lot quicker on EVs.
Yeah.
It's not something that's super advertised, but it is something that is true because EV vehicles are or not EV vehicles, but just EVs in general tend to be a little bit, they're heavier than
Mm.
most regular cars. And the downside of the instant torque is that One, they require tires that are tend to be a little bit more upmarket to be able to sustain the actual torque. And two, um, that instant torque doing it a whole bunch eats at the tires, eats
Mm,
away at the tires, and so you end eventually get to a point to where you're running through your tires instead of your tire lasting say 40,000 miles, right, for a normal um, ice car. For an EV, it's lasting you somewhere around 15 to 20 miles, or 20,000 miles. So
yeah.
there there have of course been cases where people have made it go just as far as like a regular, but it's a little bit different.
Yeah.
Plus those tires tend to have insulation deals, like there's a foam if you get very specific EV tires that are built specifically for EVs. There's a foam inside which also adds to the cost. So yeah, cost is not super duper great there.
Gotcha. Well,
um,
that's interesting to know on the foam too, because it is that just to help with the smoothness of the ride, or what's the point of that?
it's smoothness and sound,
Gotcha.
because again, you don't have a motor, right, to drown out certain noises and certain frequencies. So uh, you wanna, so you notice things more, and that kind of does go into the next con that I had, um, but is sound, right? Just you
Yeah.
notice more sound. Um, and some of, like I said, some of that is due to different build quality stuff, right? For Teslas, and my Tesla, for instance, is an older Model 3. Um, they had decent sound deadening, but it's not the best. And it's also, there's glass everywhere, and it doesn't have like double pane windows where the newer models do. The newer Model 3s and Model Ys, and I think pretty much the whole range, have double paned windows, which is
Mm,
kind of what you need
yeah.
to keep out a lot of that sound. But the sound does get a little bit louder, I would say, than say my last car, but it's still relatively close. But I think a lot of that is just due to like the acoustics of the car. When you have an all glass, pretty much, a full glass roof, you've got, glass almost everywhere or whatever like that, instead of certain places where there would be deadening panels, right? Or things where the sound couldn't reverberate on. Um, it's just going to make it a little bit louder. Plus, you don't have an engine to be able to drone out or drown out some of the other sounds. So,
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Which I'm sure a lot of it is that too, of you just noticing more for sure. But imagine if they hadn't taken those steps to deaden the sound too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of General Motors products will put noise canceling in the stereo. I know a lot of different cars do this now,
Hmm.
but if
Yeah,
you
the
swap
newer
out,
model Teslas do that, or
okay,
the nicer ones, the upmarket ones have that.
which it's crazy because it saves them a ton of money in R&D. They just find the frequency that they need to. It's a counter frequency that basically deadens the sound rather than them actually putting insulative products in the car to make it actually quiet. So if you swap out that stereo, you're screwed pretty much.
Hmm.
Yeah, which is a bummer. But man, yeah, I think those are a good list, and you explained why on each of them very thoroughly. I think that yeah, the long road trip stuff too. You
Yep.
know, something you have to account for more, and that's just an adjustment. I think of trying to find where to stop and plan that out rather than being like, oh, I can make it on one tank. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of that is, happily, most EV manufacturers have thought of this, so they kind of plan it for you. Like for
Yeah,
Tesla, for instance, if you do all their stuff through their maps, it will plan your whole ride out to you. It'll tell you how long you need to stay somewhere, um, how long your trip's going to be, all that. And
yeah,
there are plenty of route planning apps that also do the same thing. So there is a solution to it, but it is something that you have to think about. And depending on how long the trip is, it's always going to usually add more time
Sure.
to that trip. So,
Sure. Well, I think that that's kind of good insight, for people to know what it's like to drive an EV, and live with an EV. I would
mhm.
definitely. I mean, would you say the positives outweigh the negatives?
Oh
I
yeah,
would say it sounds like it does. Yeah,
oh yeah, they do.
yeah, and that's a key thing, because more and more car manufacturers are continuing to move toward it. Whether it is the long term answer or not, that is the short term answer at the very least. And so,
Hmm.
um, is it doable? Yeah, you just have to adopt a different lifestyle, and be light on the throttle pedal too. Yeah,
At
yeah,
least sometimes, right?
yeah. I mean, not all the time, of course. What fun would that be? So, yeah, man. Well, this is really good stuff. We got to bounce out of here, so we wanted to get on here, talk about this, give you guys some insight into what Dennison's experienced with the vehicles of the future.
Hmm.
And yeah, so thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, rate, subscribe, follow us on social media. All of it's linked in the description of this episode. And we will catch up with you